Hey y'all, it's Regi. Today I'm vlogging. I figured, why not? Today isn't a really busy day. I am going to work right now and I am going to a vigil after for the Charlottesville anti-fascist protesters, and so I thought today would be a good example of the things that matter to me. And so here we go. Alright, so I'm off of work. I'm downtown. I'm heading to the vigil now. I don't know if I'll record anything because it feels strange to me still, but if I do record something, it's to emphasize that racism, white supremacy, fascism is intolerated and isn't socially tolerated. That was intense. Let's go.
I stand up here because so many others, 13 trans people, well, in fact it was 16 trans women who were killed last year. And then that number is still growing this year. We have trans deaths that are happening.
Hey y'all, it's Regi. I just made it home from the store. I actually have been home for a little bit of time, but I spent some time just sort of decompressing. You'll see in a second, but I'm about to test a recipe from Sweet Potato Soul here on YouTube. I'll put her link at the top, one of these corners. And I'll also put the link to the recipe I'm going to test in the description. Yeah, I'm super excited. So, I'm halfway through my meal. It's really yummy. So I just finished my dinner, and I also just drafted some of my thoughts that I had about the vigil. For context, I don't mean it to sound scripted, but I process things better through writing, and so I just write things out. It's my style, and so I'll just be reading some of the thoughts that I have. So it's kind of like a journal entry that I'm sharing with you, if that makes sense. I'll flow through just what the rally was like, I guess, for me, and then also interweave in some of the notes. The protest that we had that was in Houston today was at City Hall, and the last time I've been to City Hall for a protest was for Trayvon Martin's a Trayvon Martin protest and vigil. I've been to other protests, but that was my last memory at City Hall, and so a lot of my impressions of not a lot, just my impression of protests at City Hall were saturated with the memory of that, and so it definitely intersected with my perception of today's vigil. I guess the first thing that was sort of a stark difference from I guess vigils that I've been to, or protests that I've been to, was the visual reminder of American pride. I wrote you know, some people, I think the organizers handed out American flags because the crowd, most of the people in the crowd, along with like their candles for the vigil, held small American flags. And paired with this visual imagery, one recurring theme that stood out to me, was salient to me, was sort of the emphasis that white supremacy, that fascism, being neo-Nazi, being aligned with the KKK, were not things that represented the speaker's concept of America, that the crowd before them represented true America. And so that filled me with a lot of ambivalent thoughts. I guess I understood that for them, like, there's a lot of power in reclaiming what America meant. I think I'll just read it, how I wrote it. I understood the reclamation of the America they seemed to value, one that upheld inclusivity and tolerance instead of bigotry and oppression. So I understood that. But I write, for me, it began to feel like the crowd forgot that being an American meant or means being a living embodiment of those contradictory ideals, these ideals of equality and inclusivity, but these ideals that are grounded in a history of violence and oppression. And so it felt weird. It just felt really, really strange. I felt angry. I felt like bitter. I felt like my body language changed. It became really defensive. And I guess I wrote later, even as like some people began to acknowledge what I just said, that our America was violently built through Black and brown hands. As the crowd began to like clap and cheer on like these claims, I began to feel more and more hollow, which was really unsettling for me. And so I sum up my current thoughts with this. Even as I strive for productive action, I continuously see, hear, and feel recurring rage, indignation, and sorrow of Black folk who are socially and structurally punished just for being Black. This weary pain can be summed up with a quote from Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's a journalist from the Atlantic, and he also has written a memoir called Between the World and Me, which you might have heard of. If you didn't, I definitely would check it out. But this is one quote that has definitely stuck with me. This is a very vivid and visceral quote, and so I would actually skip over this if violent descriptions bring up any sort of pain or trauma that you don't want to handle right now or can handle. This is basically a content warning. This is a very violent description. I'll try to put the timestamp for when this quote ends. But all of our phrasing, race relations, racial chasm, racial justice, racial profiling, white privilege, even white supremacy, serves to obscure that racism is a visceral experience, that it dislodges brains, blocks airways, rips muscle, extracts organs, cracks bones, breaks teeth. You must never look away from this. And so that's like what I remembered as like the people were cheering there and like clapping. I guess I just felt the full power of whiteness, of being able to show up to a protest and throw in like some cheers and leave and leave that sense of terror that saturates what it means to be someone who is continuously oppressed in America. And I think right now I'm speaking through the lens of Blackness, because I know that there's intersectionality and oppression, that there's classism, ableism, misogyny, transmisogyny that exist and intersect through what race means and past race. At the same time, I just felt angry, jealous, like I wish I could escape that terror that they were just feeling, that they could be like shocked about. They could be like, this isn't my America. It's like, this is always my America. This is something you just, I feel like I can't escape ever. And so we fight. I think this terror becomes even more terrifying through the lens of what it means to be Black and trans. And I struggled the whole time trying to peer at myself and peer at my world through that lens, through that reminder, as like a Black genderqueer person. The erasure of genderqueer folk made it hard, made that imagining hard, but also the pain of that heightened violence against trans, non-binary, genderqueer folk. And so I wrote this sort of rough conclusion. This dehumanization becomes bewildering for Black, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, genderqueer folk, especially Black trans women. According to a report published by Mike, at least 111 people who were transgender or gender non-conforming were killed between 2010 and 2016. %72% of these trans, gender non-conforming folk were Black trans women, or gender non-conforming femmes. My final thought is, I just don't know. The pain that I feel with that is really overwhelming, and I just don't know. I think some of the pain with trying to practice activism is being okay with the confusion of standing in your truth, and being okay with fighting for just something better, just something better than this. This is a really bad conclusion. Also, I laugh when I am overwhelmed emotionally, so there's that. Please feel free to share your thoughts down below. Feel free to answer this question: what are some steps in activism that you hope to take as you wrap your mind around messy, confusing, ambivalent thoughts and emotions? Because I'd like to know. For now, thanks for watching this. This is a really long vlog, and I'll see you in the next one.